All of these people speak Chicano English.
Dude, come here.
We are actually gonna be heading to a family vacation really soon.
Because everyone already makes up everything. Why do I have to say things? They have their own, literally telenovelas about it.
Comedian and Saturday Night Live alum Melissa Villaseñor is speaking it here.
Hey, where are you going? Stephanie.
And these content creators are speaking it too.
No, dude, literally.
I'm from LA, I identify as Chicano.
This is the vanilla bean latte with oat milk.
And I know what you're thinking. Nope, Chicano English is not Spanglish. What is it? Why do so many Americans speak it? And why do you actually not have to be of Mexican descent to speak Chicano English? And how do you know if you speak it? This story is about the hyphen between English and Spanish. I first heard about Chicano English when I was doing research for another story. That story was about Miami English, a dialect a linguist studied in Florida. It sounds something like this.
Thanks God.
Oh, let's make a party.
Make the line.
The dialect is characterized by having direct translations from Spanish for English phrases. So for example, instead of saying get out of the car, a Miami English speaker would say get down from the car, because it's a word-for-word translation of bájate del carro. Anyway, I was reading this article about Miami English when I saw this term casually dropped. Chicano English. Now, as someone who is Chicano or Mexican American, I immediately thought, wait, do I speak Chicano English? And I didn't know the answer to that question because up until that point, I never heard of Chicano English. I didn't know what it was. So I decided to email Carmen Fott, a professor of linguistics at Pitzer College, who wrote a book about Chicano English in 2003.
Chicano English, at least the way I and most linguistic experts define it, is a variety of English that is associated with people generally of Mexican American ethnicity and generally in the Southwest, although it can be found in other places. And Chicano English is just a variety that's spoken by a lot, but not all Mexican Americans in the U.S.
Chicano English has 3 distinguishing features. I want to take a moment to tell you something. My name is Fernando Hurtado, and I'm a journalist with more than 8 years of experience, most recently with NBC and Telemundo. I recently went independent and launched In The Hyphen, this channel you're watching here, to tell deeply researched, visually rich stories about US Latinos. And I would absolutely love it if you could support me. And all you have to do is subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And the best part is that it's free for you. Thank you. Back to the video. The first distinguishing feature of Chicano English is pronunciation. Words like pasta or saw are pronounced with a more Spanish-sounding A sound. So pasta becomes pasta and saw becomes sa. To hear that feature, I contacted Alegria Jimenez, a Los Angeles-based content creator I came across on TikTok. She speaks Chicano English, though she didn't know it had a name until I emailed her. She said when she started college away from home, people at her student job started saying she had an accent. As she tells us about that in the next soundbite, pay close attention to how she pronounces her vowels.
Nobody's ever told me anything until I went to college. So then I was like, oh, I forgot. Like that was the one time when like I did like get told that, but it's like, well, yeah, because like I wasn't in my hometown anymore. You know what I mean? I feel like they didn't start telling me that until maybe like a little bit deeper into what I was there. And I'm like, I feel like it's true. Like I feel like I probably showed up to the interview trying to be very like speaking very crispy, but then it's like once you just like get comfy, you're just like being yourself and you don't feel like you have to act like so corporate all the time, you know, when it's just like you and like your coworkers kicking it, you know?
So the vowels in Chicano English in a sound like below, for example. In some varieties of English, you'd hear below. In a British variety, you might hear below. And in Chicano English, you might hear below, below, you know, with a shorter O at the end and a longer E in the middle. Below. Italian has those vowels too. Then, oh, I said two.
This is where it hit me. I too speak Chicano English, or at least I did at one point. Well, it's funny you mentioned too, because I remember in high school, people started noticing that I spoke differently. And I would say, I asked my friend, I'd be like, oh, did we have any homework today? And she's like, why do you say it so weird? And I was like, what do you mean? And I could not, I was like, today. Now I know now the other variety is today instead of today. So Yeah, so I guess I might still speak Chicano English. But it's not just pronunciation that it's distinguished by. It's also characterized by word use. And there's a specific word that's probably the hallmark of Chicano English. And how you use this one word could probably tell you whether or not you speak Chicano English. That word is barely.
But in Chicano English, you can say, I barely broke my leg, meaning I just recently broke my leg.
You see, in standard US English, the word barely means almost not. For example, if you say, I barely made it to the store, that means I almost did not make it to the store. In Chicano English, however, barely means just now. So, I barely made it to the store takes on the meaning of I just now made it to the store. In other words, barely takes on the meaning of the Spanish word apenas. The third characteristic of Chicano English is its rhythm.
A lot of what you hear too is a kind of Spanish flavor to the sounds. So you'll like the below.
I don't know. I guess I do sometimes. Like I'll hear it, but like I feel like it's almost like not even like an accent. Because I talked to my mom about this. I was like, Mom, like, do you feel like I talk weird? Like, do you feel like I talk a certain way? And she's like, no, like you don't have like an accent. It's more like an intonation. She started to tell me it's like an intonation. Like it's like, oh, like you go. I don't know where you go in like certain things. I feel like it's like, dude, like, can you believe she did that? Like, I feel like it's that, you know? Which I feel like is very, like, a dramatized, right? Like, I feel like it would be that, no?
You'll hear often a rhythm that sounds more like dun, 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 dun. Whereas, which is kind of like how Spanish is, versus English, which was dun, 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 like that.
Yeah, like, it almost has, like, a little bit of a vibe to it, no? And that's kind of what I kind of started to think about it, too, because I was like, yeah, like, we do. But I just feel like it's kind of like a sauce to it. Like, it's not even like, oh, I don't know how to pronounce, like, a certain word, right? But it's just, like, an energy a little bit, you know?
And you may be thinking, isn't that just Spanglish? I also thought that, but it's not.
So Spanglish is its own thing. Spanglish is one variety of what we call code switching. Code switching is mixing two languages.
For example, saying something like, I'm going to the tienda to say I'm going to the store is Spanglish. And there's one big difference. Whereas Spanglish requires knowing both English and Spanish, Chicano English does not.
Myself and most linguists will define Chicano English as a native variety, a native speaker variety. If you're a native Spanish speaker and you're just learning English, that's something different. That's not Chicano English, right? That's its own thing. That's learner English or, Spanish influenced English or something. But Chicano English is only spoken by native speakers. And one of the things that happens is Chicano English is spoken by monolingual speakers. You do not have to be bilingual to speak Chicano English.
So how did Chicano English become a thing? Its origin is unclear, but its roots can probably be traced back to the 1920s, when California saw a massive wave of Mexicans migrating to the Golden State, increasing the population 11-fold in just 20 years. These migrants started learning English, and they spoke a non-native variety that was likely characterized by a lot of Spanish sounds and grammar constructions. It was the children of this generation of immigrants that probably started speaking Chicano English, as they became more English dominant than Spanish dominant. Mexican migration to California has only increased since then. In 1942, more than 4 million Mexican men arrived to the state as part of the Bracero program. The US Congress approved the temporary importation of Mexican workers to help with the labor shortage the US was seeing as American men were off fighting in World War II. The 22-year program completely changed the demographics of California as Mexican men started families here. Since then, we've seen an influx of Mexicans migrating to all parts of the United States. From 2000 to 2021, the share of Americans of Mexican origin increased by 79%. And it's estimated that there are nearly 40 million Mexican Americans in the United States today. So I live in Los Angeles, a city that has the largest population of Mexicans outside of Mexico itself. Here, Chicano English is so ingrained in culture that the Los Angeles Unified School District has this 41-page document titled Teacher's Guide to Supporting Mexican American Standard English Learners. The purpose of the guide is to, quote, serve as a reference manual for teachers and introduction to the characteristic linguistic features of Mexican American language, also referenced as Chicano English. The specific objective objective of the guide is to facilitate the acquisition of standard American and academic English in Mexican American standard English learners. So I want to go somewhere where I can find people who speak Chicano English, and I think I know just the spot. Boyle Heights is one of Los Angeles' most Hispanic neighborhoods. 93% of residents are Hispanic. I went to one of its busiest streets to see if I could find people who speak Chicano English. To do that, I went around giving people a Chicano English test. You're gonna open that piece of paper, you're gonna read the sentence that's on that piece of paper out loud, okay? And then I will tell you if you speak Chicano English.
Okay. I have nothing to do today or tomorrow.
I have nothing to do today or tomorrow.
I have nothing to do today or tomorrow.
You speak it. So Chicano English is not quite Spanglish. It's not mixing English and Spanish. It's what some people call like a very LA Latino accent. So instead of saying nothing, you say nothing. Was Spanish your first language?
It was both. It was more Spanish, I guess, because of my mom, and English I learned in school.
While I did these interviews, Adriana said something to her son off camera that caught my attention.
I don't think you have it. Your English is really good.
For Adriana, there was this notion that her English was bad. And I can see why she would think that. Her English sounds very different from the English we're used to hearing on TV.
This story you're telling, it just sounds like very familiar.
For making it to the Academy Awards.
20% off right now at Amazon.
I think there might be a little mistake.
And here's the thing. Notice how I referred to that speech as the standard variety and not the correct variety? That's intentional. Linguists will tell you there is no such thing as a correct language.
I do think it's important for people to remember that everybody speaks a dialect. You know, we think we don't. And we think Chicano English is this funny, weird one. But really, it's not weird. It's just different. It's associated with that ethnicity. And the reason that the way I'm speaking right now and the way you're speaking gets to be the standard is not because it's structurally better or there's anything about it that's better. It's because the people in power speak this way, the people who make the decisions. Imagine if the people in power spoke like this.
I got a new eyeliner.
The lakefront, the northwest side.
Instead of like this.
He and I work so well together.
It's like in a state of shock.
He wants to do away with the birthright citizenship.
If all the people in power were Latinx folks who spoke Chicano English, then that would be the standard, and the way we talk would be seen as funny.
And then Professor Fott said something that caught my eye, or ears rather.
The interesting part is that really recent research suggests that other dialects in California, spoken by white people or spoken by other people, are starting to be a little influenced by Chicano English in little small ways. That's very new research.
Here's something that could be evidence of that.
You know, one that might be is going. Going might be that going. I think you hear that feature a little bit more in California, even among people who don't speak Chicano English, people from other ethnic groups, white folks, black folks.
That's right. Americans who have no connection to Mexico could be speaking English differently because of the Chicano English and Spanish they hear around them. I wanted to see if I could find some of these non-Mexican Chicano English speakers. So I went to a street festival in LA. My thinking was that I'd find non-Mexicans who grew up around Mexican culture and perhaps spoke Chicano English. I found a lot of Latinos who spoke Chicano English. So you're gonna unfold that paper. I want you to read this sentence.
Dude, I have nothing to do today or tomorrow.
Dude, I have nothing to do today or tomorrow.
But I had a hard time finding non-Latinos who did so, until I found these women. I want you to unfold it and read the sentence that's on that first piece of paper.
These people are going to make me mad.
It's subtle, but you can hear the ing sound.
Going to make me mad.
And something that might also be a feature of Chicano English, the fact that she says these instead of these. I'll do that again. These instead of these.
These people. I went to a predominantly African American and Hispanic speaking high school, and so that's kind of what I meant. We're like, yes, absolutely.
absolutely. And I don't know if I've ever even picked up on it being completely like a regional dialect or a different accent in that sense. That's really interesting. And like I'm seeing and perceiving it very differently now.
And then I ran into this person.
People keep saying that I have an accent, but I don't hear it.
Alma is Mexican.
Who says you have an accent?
My white partner.
Alma's partner Noel is of Mexican descent too, but does not speak Spanish.
What do you mean by the accent?
She has a flip of the tongue where she'll say something
Omelette.
in different ways, and it's really cute, and it doesn't sound Espanol, and it doesn't sound Americano.
What do you feel when people kind of like make comments about your English? Be honest.
At this point, I'm a little self-conscious because I never knew that I had, like, I didn't get to practice it as much, so.
I have an idea for my last question. How about we give you the Chicano English quiz, okay? Since you love to talk a big game, we're kidding. No. So you're gonna
I'll take
read this sentence.
Dude, I have nothing to do today or tomorrow.
So
You say it
plot twist,
too.
you speak Chicano English too.
Okay.
You said tomorrow.
No. Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
You did say dude. What are your takes on that? You do speak Chicano English.
I mean, I wouldn't have even noticed. I guess it's cool.
For linguist Carmen Fott, it's more than just cool.
Not only is there nothing wrong with it, there's a lot of things that are good about it. That's the way that you show your heritage and that you're proud of where you come from. And it's associated with all the foods that you eat and the people in your family that you love and your grandparents. Your home dialect is very, very important for everybody. And you have a right to it. You have a linguistic right. All the linguists, all my people in my field will back you up on that. You have a right to your dialect that goes with your identity, and you should be very proud of it. You can learn another one if you want, if it's useful, but be proud of the one that you came with.
I never felt like, oh, I should be ashamed of myself, or, oh, like, you know, like, I wish I was, like, another type of girl. Like, I don't know, I just felt like I've always been, like, very proud of, like, where I come from. I feel like my culture has always been really celebrated, so I feel like I've always just been very secure in that, you know? Like, I've never had a desire to be, like, anything that I'm, like, not, you know?